The doors of the Coronado Naval Base Emergency Veterinary Clinic slammed open at 2030 hours. Two military police officers backed through first boots, skidding on tile uniforms streaked with dust and dried blood. Between them, strapped to a sagging gurney, was a Belgian Malinois. Not barking, not growling, just watching. Every shadow, every movement, every hand that reached toward him, like a bomb waiting for someone to trip the wire. The dog's muscles coiled beneath tan and black fur matted with dirt. His eyes tracked the room with mechanical precision, scanning faces, calculating distances, measuring threats. A leather muzzle hung half-destroyed around his snout. Blood dripped in slow lines from his rear left flank, painting dark streaks across the white canvas. "Call sign Titan," one of the MPs said, chest heaving. "Shrapnel wound rear leg. Found him 3 clicks from extraction, dragging himself through the sand. Refuses approach from anyone." Titan snarled suddenly. Controlled. Deliberate. The sound cut through the room like a blade. The muzzle tore completely free with one brutal jerk. Foam flecked his jowls. His lips pulled back to reveal teeth trained to crush bone. A nurse near the supply cabinet yelped and stumbled backward. "Jesus Christ," muttered Dr. Patricia Moreland, a woman in her mid-40s with silver threading through her auburn hair. She pulled on surgical gloves with practiced efficiency. "What kind of dog is this?" "Tier 1 asset," the second MP replied. "K9 from Naval Special Warfare. His handler went KIA 6 days ago on the Syrian border. He's been like this since extraction." A junior tech stepped forward with a harness sling, voice pitched high and sweet. "It's okay, buddy. We just want to help." Titan lunged. Every muscle fired with surgical precision, launching his frame forward, hard enough to make the gurney slide across the tile. His jaws snapped shut on empty air exactly where the technician's hand had been. She screamed. The harness clattered to the floor. "Back! Everyone back!" The room erupted into controlled chaos. Staff scattered, equipment rattled. Metal instruments hit the floor in cascading echoes. Senior Chief Garrett Hutchins, a barrel-chested man in his late 40s, stood near the doorway and surveyed the scene with earned calm. "He's going to lose the leg. We can't get near him. Maybe 40 minutes before blood loss becomes critical." Dr. Moreland moved toward the medication cabinet. "Full sedative load, 3 cc's intramuscular. I'm not letting him bleed out on my table." But Titan heard the word, or sensed the shift in the room's energy, the confidence of people who'd stopped seeing him as a soldier and started treating him like a problem to be neutralized. He howled. The sound was long and haunting and wrong. Not rage, not aggression, something older and deeper. Every person froze. The howl echoed off the walls, and when it faded into silence, no one moved. Then Titan reared back and tore through the last remnants of the muzzle. Blood continued its steady drip, but he never moved to run. Instead, he backed into the corner as far from the surrounding humans as the space allowed. Tail low, chest heaving, ears pinned flat, eyes never leaving the circle of people trying to fix him without asking if he wanted to be fixed. "He's unhandable," someone whispered. "Too far gone," another voice added. "It's like he's not just hurt, he's terrified." But no one moved to stop Dr. Moreland from prepping the sedative syringe. The needle gleamed under fluorescent lights. 3 cc's, enough to drop a dog this size in under 2 minutes. Enough to stop a heart if the dosage was wrong given his blood loss. That's when a new silhouette filled the doorway. Quiet, steady, arms folded loosely. A woman in dusty SEAL fatigues, hair pulled back into a regulation bun, starting to come loose. Boots scuffed from hard use. No clipboard, no visible rank. Just stillness in the middle of chaos. Nobody noticed her at first. Nobody except Titan. His ears twitched once, and for the first time in an hour, the growling stopped. The woman stepped quietly into the threshold. Uniform wrinkled from recent transport, sleeves rolled to her elbows, dried blood still visible on her wrist. Petty Officer Second Class Magdalene Ashford was 25 years old, though exhaustion made her look younger. Dust streaked her cheeks. She moved with the careful economy of someone running on reserves. "Back out, Ashford," Hutchins snapped the moment he spotted her. "This isn't a sandbox for trainees. We've got a critical situation." She didn't move, didn't argue. Her eyes were locked on Titan. The Belgian Malinois hadn't looked away from her since she'd stepped into view. His body was still rigid, but something had shifted. His pupils had narrowed, focusing with intensity beyond threat assessment. His breathing had changed rhythm. He was trying to remember something. Maggie took one slow step forward, hands visible and empty. "Did you not hear the order?" Hutchins growled louder. "I said back out, now." "I heard, Senior Chief," Maggie said quietly, but she kept her gaze on Titan, on the way his ears kept swiveling. Not in panic, but triangulation, on the faint shift in his shoulder muscles, on the fact that he hadn't snapped at the MPs who'd brought him in, only at the clinic staff with their muzzles and restraints. She could almost hear it. Not barking, not warning, scanning, sorting, searching for something familiar in a room full of strangers. Her eyes dropped to the faint line of old scar tissue running across Titan's muzzle, barely visible beneath dried mud. That wasn't recent. That scar was at least a year old. The pattern was specific, tooth-marked, uniform, purposeful. She'd seen that scarring before, on dogs trained to enter blast zones, on canines who could crawl under razor wire without sound, on war dogs who'd been through selection protocols that washed out 90% of candidates. Not pets, soldiers. "Restrain him already," someone said. "We're losing time." "They already tried that," Maggie murmured. "That's not what's wrong." "What was that, Ashford?" Hutchins demanded. She blinked once. "Nothing, Senior Chief." But it wasn't nothing in the way Titan's hind leg twitched when someone said handler, the way his eyes tracked movement but not faces, the way he hadn't tried to escape, just backed into a defensive position and held it. He wasn't just reacting. He was executing protocol, filtering threats, mapping escape vectors, and failing because the one voice he needed was gone. "He's too far gone," someone muttered. "The handler dies and the dog just breaks." Maggie's jaw tightened. They were trying to treat a legendary Special Operations K9 like a traumatized rescue. Same symptoms, completely different, cause completely different solution. Then Titan looked at her. Really looked. Direct eye contact in a way military working dogs were trained not to do with strangers. And something flickered in those bloodshot brown eyes. Not trust, not fear, memory. A technician moved too fast with a fresh muzzle voice, high and gentle. "Come on, boy. It's okay." Titan's body didn't flinch. It detonated. A blur of muscle exploded upward. Jaws closed on air 6 inches from the outstretched hand. The muzzle flew, hit the wall, clattered to the floor. The tech staggered backward and slammed into a tray of surgical instruments. The crash was spectacular. Scalpels scattered. Saline bottles shattered in explosions of glass and liquid. "Back, everyone, back." An MP stepped between staff and Gurney. "Lockdown protocol." The clinic doors slammed shut. Magnetic locks engaged. Staff scrambled for restraint poles, dart kits. Titan dropped to all fours and whirled to face the sealed door. His body lowered into a crouch. Not to run. To hold ground, every muscle coiled, eyes locked on the barrier between him and freedom. "He's going to rip someone open," a nurse said, voice shaking, heart rate pushing 180. "We need a dart in him now." Moreland loaded a heavier sedative into a larger syringe. 3 more minutes of this, and he bleeds out anyway. "We sedate, or we lose him." "No," Maggie said from the far wall. Her voice wasn't loud, but something in the tone made people pause. Dr. Moreland looked up. "Excuse me. You put that in him and you stop his heart," Maggie said quietly. "Look at his blood loss. That dosage might be standard for a healthy animal, but he's borderline hypovolemic. You hit him with that cocktail and his cardiac system shuts down. And you know this how? Because I'm a SEAL corpsman, I've treated hemorrhagic shock in the field more times than I can count. You overcompensate with sedation on a hypovolemic patient, you crash their blood pressure and stop their heart." While Master Chief Brennan Cole, the K9 program director, stepped forward. He was 52, gray-haired, weathered. "Ashford's got a point, Doctor. This animal's lost at least 15% blood volume. We need to think this through." But no one was really listening. The room had committed to sedation, too much chaos, too much fear. Titan was panting now, blood still leaking from torn muscle around his hind flank. His legs trembled slightly. Not from fear, from blood loss, from exhaustion. But he wouldn't let anyone near. Every time someone shifted, he tracked it, calculated, prepared to strike. Every hand except one. His eyes kept drifting back to the young woman in dusty fatigues against the far wall, the one who hadn't tried to grab him, hadn't approached with false sweetness, just watched him the way he was watching everyone else. Maggie stepped forward, just one step, slow and deliberate. "Stop," she said, louder this time. Clear. "Just stop." A major from base administration raised his voice. "Petty Officer Ashford, you are not cleared to enter the containment perimeter." Titan's ears twitched at the shout, his body tensed further. Maggie didn't glance at the major. "Look at him. His hackles aren't raised. His pupils aren't fully dilated from rage. He's not showing classic aggressive behavior patterns." She took another step forward. Titan's head turned to track her, but he didn't growl. "He's scared. He's waiting for something. And he thinks you're the ones who hurt him." "That's insane," someone muttered. "You're trying to restrain him," Maggie corrected. "You're trying to control him using methods that feel exactly like capture, exactly like enemy protocol." She moved closer to the invisible perimeter everyone had established, close enough that if he lunged, she'd be in range. "Senior Chief," she said, addressing Hutchins without taking her eyes off Titan. "Permission to approach." "Denied," Hutchins said immediately. "This is a Tier 1 combat asset with severe trauma, and you've got 14 months of deployment experience. You're going to get yourself hurt." "Yes, Senior Chief, I probably am, but I'm the only person in this room he hasn't growled at." Hutchins opened his mouth, then closed it. Because she was right. "I know that serial number," Maggie said quietly, pointing toward the faded tattoo inside Titan's right ear. "That's TS-4471, Tier Shadow Designation. Black Site Infiltration Protocols." The room went very quiet. "How the hell do you know Tier Shadow coding?" Cole asked. Maggie finally looked away from Titan. "Because I was embedded support with that unit for 16 months, medical and communications. Most people on this base don't even know Tier Shadow exists." "Who was his handler?" Cole asked, though something in his voice suggested he already knew. "Staff Sergeant Kira Walsh," Maggie said. Her voice didn't waver, but something shifted in her expression. "She was killed 6 days ago during an ambush on the Syrian border. Titan was with her when it happened." The weight of that information settled over the room. "Sergeant Walsh was your handler liaison?" Hutchins asked, his voice losing its sharp edge. "She was more than that, Senior Chief," Maggie said quietly. "She was my best friend. We went through BUDS together 3 years ago. She got Canine Handler Pipeline. I got Corpsman Track. When I got assigned to support Tier Shadow, she made sure I understood how to work with her dog." She turned back to Titan. "She made me learn the emergency protocols, the override codes. She said, if something happens to me in the field and Titan gets hurt, you're the medic. He needs to let you treat him." "Override codes require handler certification," Dr. Moreland said. "I don't have certification. I've got maybe 20 hours of actual handling time with Titan, all supervised, all training scenarios. But Kira made me learn the protocols anyway. The emergency procedures for when a handler goes down and the K9 won't accept help from anyone else." She looked at Commander Bradford, who'd been observing silently. "Sir, I'm not trying to override anyone's authority. I'm not qualified to be this dog's handler, but I might be qualified to save his life tonight. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to try." Bradford studied her for a long moment. "Dr. Moreland, your professional opinion on the sedation risk." The veterinarian grimaced. "She's not wrong. Blood loss complicates sedation significantly. The risk is real." Master Chief Cole crossed his arms. "Sir, if she's got Tier Shadow override codes, she might be our best option. Walsh wouldn't have taught her those protocols if she didn't trust her." Bradford nodded slowly. 90 seconds, Ashford. "If this doesn't work, we go with sedation regardless of risk." "Understood." "Yes, sir." Maggie took a breath, let it out slowly. This was just like field medicine. Stay calm, move deliberately, trust your training. She took another step forward, then another, moving with careful economy, hands visible and empty, posture neutral. Titan watched her approach. His breathing was still rapid, but the panting had decreased. His ears remained forward, tracking her with absolute focus. She stopped 6 feet away, knelt down slowly, keeping her weight on the sides of her boots, ready to move if necessary, but not poised to spring. And then, without looking at anyone else, without asking permission, Maggie whispered 6 syllables. The words came out soft and measured, clipped like a radio call sign. Not English, not standard K9 commands, something else entirely. Shadow protocol, handler down, medical override Walsh 1. The phrase was classified, written in blood and sand for one unit only. Created for situations exactly like this, when a K9's handler had fallen and the dog was injured and traumatized, and nothing else could reach him. Titan froze. Complete stillness. Every muscle locked. His back legs trembled once, then settled. His front claws clicked gently against the tile as his aggressive stance softened by degrees. And then, like muscle memory overriding conscious thought, he shifted forward. Slow, low, something between submission and offering. He closed the gap between them inch by inch, crawling across blood-streaked tile until his injured rear leg extended forward, stretched out toward Maggie. Treat me, but only you. Behind them, the room fell deathly still. Someone exhaled hard. A surgical nurse whispered, "What the hell just happened?" Maggie spoke again, the second half of the code sequence. "Allied hands, medical friend, stand down." Titan lowered his head, not to the floor, to her knee. His muzzle came to rest against her leg with gentleness that seemed impossible. The blood still pulsed from his wound. His breathing was still elevated, but the shaking stopped. The tension drained from his shoulders and spine. His whole body deflated like a soldier finally told he could rest. And then, impossibly, he crawled forward into her lap. Not seeking warmth, seeking recognition. The confirmation that someone still remembered who he was and what he'd lost. Maggie placed one hand on his neck, just behind the scarred collar line. Titan let out a long, soft whine. One that cracked halfway through like something breaking loose from somewhere too deep to reach without pain. No one moved, no one spoke. Every person in that room understood they'd just witnessed something no protocol manual could explain. Maggie didn't ask permission. She simply looked at Titan's wound and shifted into the version of herself she'd spent 3 years becoming. "Gauze," she said calmly. "Saline suction. No sedation, no anesthetic. I'll do local flush and wound packing." Nobody moved for 2 seconds. Then Dr. Moreland nodded sharply. "You heard her. Field trauma kit." The supplies arrived. Maggie rolled up her sleeves and her hands moved with controlled precision. She flushed the wound once, gently clearing dried grit and caked debris. Then again, more slowly, watching how the blood flow changed, looking for arterial involvement, bone fragments, foreign material. "Entry wound here," she murmured, falling into verbal processing. "No deep puncture, tungsten carbide fragmentation, flesh wound, muscle tear but bone structure intact." Titan didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He lay still, pressed half against her knee, and let her fingers work the torn muscle. "I need light. Someone hold the LED here." A surgical nurse moved forward, lifting the examination light. "Pressure here, light contact constant." Another technician stepped in, following instructions. One by one, the clinic staff gathered closer. The earlier mockery gone, replaced by professional respect. "The dog's responded to her," someone whispered. "Heart rate dropping to 120. Respiration evening out." "He's not just responding," Cole corrected quietly. "He's obeying." As Maggie packed the wound and applied compression bandaging, she kept talking. Not to the room, to Titan. Her tone was low and rhythmic. Field language. The verbal pattern used to manage pain when morphine was limited and evacuation was hours away. She'd used that same cadence with human SEALs before, when your voice had to convince a body to hang on for one more hour. Pressure maintaining, tourniquet stable, blood flow controlled. She worked as she spoke. "Need a vitals monitor on this leg. CBC panel when we're stable." The equipment appeared. Maggie snapped monitoring leads into place. Through it all, Titan didn't twitch. His eyes stayed locked on hers with intensity that went beyond simple obedience. He was holding still because she'd asked him to, because somewhere in his traumatized mind he'd recognized something. Not her specifically, but the echo of someone he'd trusted. The shadow of procedures in a voice that meant safety instead of threat. Dr. Moreland stepped closer. His vitals shouldn't be this stable. He's lost significant blood volume. He's not stable, Maggie said quietly. He's just holding it together for me. There's a difference. She looked up, meeting the veterinarian's eyes. He's doing it because I asked. Because in his world, when someone uses those code phrases in that specific order, with that specific cadence, it means his handler is down, but help has arrived. It means he can stop fighting and start surviving. The monitor blipped once, then settled into steady rhythm. Titan's breathing evened out further. The pale gray in his gums began to shift back toward healthy pink. The worst was over. The bleeding was controlled, and the only reason was a 25-year-old woman they'd written off as too young 30 minutes earlier. Hutchins approached slowly. "Where did you learn those code phrases, petty officer?" Maggie kept her hands on Titan. "Sergeant Walsh taught them to me over about 6 months of deployment. She'd run scenarios during downtime, make me practice the verbal sequences until I could do them in my sleep." A younger corpsman spoke up. "That's Tier Shadow Protocol, isn't it?" Maggie nodded slowly. "It's psychological safety architecture, built for canines who've lost handlers and need to be reached when they're too traumatized to accept standard commands." She finally looked around the room. "I didn't just learn the phrases, Senior Chief. I helped write parts of them. Kira and I worked on refining the medical emergency sequences together. She understood canine psychology. I understood trauma response and field medicine. We built something that could bridge both." Hutchins stared at her. "You were more than embedded support." "I was Kira's best friend," Maggie said simply. Her voice cracked slightly. "We went through buds together. She was 29. I was 24. We stayed close. When I got the Tier Shadow assignment, she made sure I understood how to work with Titan, because she said if anything happened to her, he'd need someone who knew him, someone he could trust." Bradford stepped forward. "When did you last see SS John Walsh, petty officer?" Maggie's hands stilled. 7 days ago, sir, the night before her last mission. We had coffee at EO 500 in the mess hall. She made me promise one more time that if something happened to her, I'd take care of Titan." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. She made me say the words out loud, like she knew, like she had a feeling something was wrong. The room stayed frozen in that heavy silence that comes when people realize they're standing in the presence of grief too fresh to have developed scar tissue. Bradford's voice was gentle. "Your friend's handler evaluation is in your personnel file, Ashford." "Did you know that?" Maggie looked up surprised. "No, sir. She recommended you for canine liaison training 8 months ago. Wrote that you had the temperament, the medical skills, and the instincts for working with Tier 1 assets. She said PO2 Ashford is young, but she possesses instincts that cannot be taught. Trust her with my canine should circumstances require it." Maggie's eyes burned. She blinked hard. Bradford continued. "I'm going to need you in my office at 0600 hours tomorrow. We need to discuss what happens next with this animal. He needs a handler, and after tonight it's very clear he's already chosen one." "Sir," Maggie began, but Bradford raised a hand. "That's not a request, it's an order. Report at 600. He turned to leave and then paused. "Good work tonight, Ashford. Your friend would be proud." After Bradford left the room, slowly dispersed. Staff returned to their stations. The crisis was over. Maggie stayed on the floor with Titan for another 40 minutes while Dr. Moreland completed examination and administered fluids through an IV line that Titan tolerated without sedation as long as Maggie kept her hand on his shoulder. Cole approached as they were finishing. "You understand what you just did, don't you?" Maggie looked up. "I saved his life, Master Chief." "You did more than that. You proved that a Tier 1 combat K9 with severe trauma can be reached, that the bond can be transferred under the right circumstances. Most people believe that's impossible." "He's not finished," Maggie said quietly. "He's just lost. There's a difference." Cole nodded slowly. "Walsh trained you well." "I'll never be her bond," Maggie said, more bitter than intended. "She was the best handler I've ever seen." "Maybe, but tonight you were enough, and tomorrow when the commander asks you to take on something you don't feel ready for, remember that." He checked his watch. "Get some rest. You've got 4 hours before that meeting." After Cole left, it was just Maggie and Titan and one remaining tech. The clinic had gone quiet. The crisis energy had drained away. Titan's head still rested on Maggie's knee. His eyes were closing finally. His breathing was deep and even. The wound was stable. He was going to survive. Maggie stroked the fur between his ears gently, the way she'd seen Kira do 100 times. "You did good, buddy," she whispered. "Kira would be proud of how brave you were tonight." At the sound of his handler's name, Titan's eyes opened briefly. He looked at Maggie with an expression that was heartbreaking in its clarity. He knew. He understood. His handler wasn't coming back. But this person, this woman who smelled like gunpowder and dust and field medicine, who knew the right words and the right touch, she might be acceptable. Not a replacement. Replacements were impossible. But maybe someone who could help him remember what it felt like to trust. Maggie felt tears finally slide down her cheeks now that no one was watching. "I'm not ready for this," she whispered. "Kira, I'm not you. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm scared I'm going to let you down." But Titan just pressed closer against her leg and let out a soft sigh that sounded almost peaceful. And in the quiet of the clinic at 100 hours, with the weight of impossible responsibility settling on her shoulders, Magdalene Ashford made a choice. She would try, even though she wasn't qualified, even though she was terrified, even though everyone would doubt her. She would try because Kira had asked her to, because Titan deserved someone who would fight for him, because walking away wasn't an option when someone needed you. "Okay," she whispered to the sleeping dog. "Okay, we'll figure this out together." The monitor beeped steadily. The night stretched on, and somewhere in the darkness, the ghost of a fallen handler smiled, knowing her two best friends had finally found each other. Commander Bradford's office at 0600 hours was exactly what Maggie expected. Spartan, functional, walls lined with commendations spanning 3 decades of naval special warfare operations. A single window overlooked the K-9 training facility, where morning sun was burning off coastal fog. Maggie had managed 2 hours of sleep, showered, changed into fresh uniform. Her eyes felt gritty, but her spine was straight. Whatever was coming, she'd face it upright. Bradford sat behind his desk, reviewing her personnel jacket. Every deployment, every evaluation, every classified operation. Master Chief Cole stood near the window, arms crossed. Senior Chief Hutchins leaned against the wall by the door, looking like he'd also gotten minimal sleep. His earlier hostility had been replaced by something more complex. Acknowledgement, at least. Bradford closed the file. "Petty Officer Ashford, sit." She sat in the chair opposite his desk, back not touching the chair. Ready position. "Titan is stable," Bradford began. "Dr. Moreland reports the wound is clean blood volume, responding well to fluid replacement. He'll make a full physical recovery within 6 weeks." "That's good news, sir. The problem is what happens next." Bradford leaned back. "A K-9 of Titan's capabilities requires a handler. Standard protocol would be immediate reassignment to a qualified operator." He paused. "Master Chief Cole has reviewed that pool." "Senior Chief," Hutchins pushed off the wall. "We've got 8 qualified K-9 handlers on base. 3 declined immediately when they heard about Titan's behavioral status. 2 more declined after reviewing his psych eval. The remaining 3 agreed to observe him this morning. And all 3 withdrew within an hour. Titan wouldn't even look at them. When one handler persisted, Titan showed teeth." Maggie felt her stomach sink. Cole stepped forward. "The issue isn't qualification, Ashford. It's compatibility. Titan's bonded at a neurological level most people don't understand. When Walsh died, part of his operational framework died with her." "Dogs like Titan don't transfer easily," Hutchins added. "Most of the time when a handler is KIA and the dog survives, the dog gets retired. But Titan's not a pet. He's been doing direct action since he was 18 months old." Bradford's voice cut through. "Which brings us to you." Maggie met his eyes, waited. "Last night you accessed protocols most people on this base don't know exist. You calmed an animal 8 qualified handlers considered too dangerous. SGD Walsh recommended you for K-9 liaison training 8 months ago. I declined because we needed corpsmen more than handlers." He opened another file. "But Walsh was persistent. 3 separate evaluations over 6 months, all recommending you. Her last evaluation, submitted 4 days before she was killed, stated that if anything happened to her, you should be assigned as Titan's handler. 4 days before, Kira had known. "I'm not qualified, sir," Maggie said quietly. 20 hours of handling time, no certification, no formal training. You're absolutely right, Bradford agreed. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be considered. But these aren't normal circumstances. We have a Tier 1 asset who refuses to work with anyone else. And we have a fallen operator's explicit wishes on record. He leaned forward. Here's what I'm offering. 30-day conditional assignment. You train with Titan under Master Chief Cole's supervision. Study test work toward provisional certification. At the end of 30 days, you take the official evaluation. If you pass, Titan remains active duty with you as handler. If you fail any major benchmark, he's medically retired. Maggie's mouth went dry. What does medical retirement mean for a dog with behavioral issues, sir? The silence answered the question. Cole's voice was gentle. It means humane euthanasia, Ashford. We don't adopt out combat canines with aggression markers. So if I fail, he dies. Yes. Maggie looked down at her hands. 30 days to become qualified for something that took most handlers 2 years. 30 days to save the life of a who just lost everything. 30 days to honor a promise to her dead best friend. I need to be clear, Bradford said. This isn't a favor. This is a tactical calculation. We've invested 4 years and roughly $500,000 in training Titan. If there's any chance he can return to active duty, it's worth attempting. But only if we have a handler who can maintain operational standards. You'd be setting her up for failure, Hutchins said, his voice realistic now, not hostile. Sir, 30 days isn't enough time. Handler certification takes minimum 6 months. She's a good corpsman with natural instinct, but this is asking her to compress a year of training into a month. I'm aware, Senior Chief, which is why I'm asking her, not ordering her. Bradford turned to Maggie. This is voluntary. You can decline. We'll find another solution for Titan, even if that solution is retirement. You'll continue corpsman duties, and this conversation never happened. Maggie sat in that chair and felt impossible choices pressing down. Every rational part of her brain screamed to decline. She wasn't qualified. 30 days wasn't enough. She'd fail and Titan would die. But she could hear Kira's voice. You're tougher than you think, Mags. When the moment comes, you'll know what to do. If I accept, Maggie said slowly, what exactly does the training entail? Cole sat down. Accelerated handler course. We compress the standard curriculum. Basic commands, tactical operations, medical protocols, emergency procedures. 6 hours a day with Titan, 4 hours classroom, then additional study time. Who evaluates me? A board consisting of myself, Senior Chief Hutchins, Dr. Moreland, and Captain Vincent Sloan from the West Coast Canine Training Program. Cole's expression tightened. Captain Sloan has a reputation for being thorough and difficult. He's never passed a female handler, Hutchins added bluntly. In 8 years, he's found disqualifying deficiencies in every woman who's attempted certification. Maggie absorbed that. So I'd be trying to pass a board that includes someone fundamentally opposed to female handlers. Yes, Bradford said simply, which is why this is voluntary. Maggie stood, walked to the window, looked out at the canine training facility where morning drills were beginning. She thought about Titan, about the way he'd looked at her last night with those exhausted eyes, about the broken whine, about the way he'd crawled into her lap, seeking recognition. She thought about Kira, about early morning coffee and late night conversations. If I fail the evaluation, is there any appeal process? No, Bradford said. The board's decision is final. And during the 30 days, if Titan shows continued aggression, suggesting he can't be rehabilitated, then we make the call early, Cole said quietly. Maggie nodded slowly, drew in a breath. I'll do it, on one condition. Bradford raised an eyebrow. During the 30 days, I want regular updates from Dr. Moreland on Titan's psychological state. If at any point she determines that trying to retrain him is causing more harm than good, I want to be able to make the call to stop. I won't force him to keep going just because I want to save him. Something shifted in Bradford's expression. Agreed. Dr. Moreland will evaluate him weekly. Then yes, sir. I accept the assignment. Hutchins studied her. You understand what you're signing up for, 30 days of the hardest training you've experienced, evaluated by people who think you'll fail with a traumatized animal who might never trust anyone again. And if you fail, you watch him die, knowing you weren't good enough. I understand, Senior Chief. And you're doing it anyway. Yes, Senior Chief. Hutchins nodded. Then I guess we better make sure you don't fail. The first training session started at 800 hours. Maggie had 30 minutes to grab breakfast and change into training fatigues. Titan was already there lying in a large kennel with the door open. Someone had cleaned him up. The blood was gone, the wound properly bandaged. He looked better physically, but his eyes were still shadowed. He didn't look up when Maggie entered. Just lay there, head on paws, staring at nothing. Cole stood near a whiteboard covered in training schedules. First thing you need to understand is that what you did last night doesn't mean you can handle him operationally. You access trauma protocols in an emergency. That's not the same as building a working relationship. I understand, Master Chief. Most handlers spend 6 months just building basic trust. You've got 30 days to build trust and achieve operational readiness. We're starting from zero. He pointed to the whiteboard. Standard certification requires competency in 8 areas. Basic obedience, tactical movement, scent detection, threat assessment, medical emergency response, handler protection protocols, off-leash reliability, and stress management. Maggie studied the list. Each area represented weeks of normal training. We're starting with the absolute basics, Cole continued. Right now, you're going to walk into that kennel and see if you can get him to sit on command. It sounded simple. It wasn't. Maggie approached the kennel slowly. Titan's ears twitched, but he didn't raise his head. She knelt outside the open door. Hey, buddy, remember me? No response. She tried the basic command. Titan, sit. Nothing. She tried again with a hand signal. Titan, sit. Still nothing. His body remained flat on the kennel floor, utterly unresponsive. Cole's voice came from behind. He's not being defiant. He's shut down. This is what trauma looks like in working dogs. They stop responding because responding means accepting their world has changed. And accepting that means accepting their handler is gone. Maggie felt frustration rising. Last night he'd trusted her. Why wouldn't he even look at her now? Last night was emergency protocol, Cole explained. You triggered trauma override codes that bypass normal command structures. Right now, he's not in crisis mode. He's in grief mode. And in grief mode, everything shuts down. So what do I do? Start smaller. Forget commands. Just try to get him to acknowledge your presence. Maggie sat down, completely crossing her legs. She didn't speak, didn't reach for him, just sat there. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Titan never moved. This is going to be harder than I thought, Maggie said quietly. Yes, Cole agreed, and that's day 1, hour 1. You've got 29 days and 23 hours left. The morning session was brutal in its simplicity. Maggie tried everything. Different tones, different commands, hand signals. Nothing worked. When Cole suggested basic movement exercises, Titan simply stood up, walked to the far corner, lay down, and turned his back. It was the canine equivalent of shutting a door in someone's face. By 1100 hours, Maggie was exhausted and discouraged. Cole called a break. The mess hall was half empty. Maggie grabbed food she didn't want and found a corner table. Hutchins appeared with his own tray and sat down without asking. Rough morning. Is it that obvious? Cole texted me, said Titan wouldn't even look at you. Hutchins took a bite of his sandwich. You know what your problem is? I'm not qualified. Besides that, you're trying to be Walsh. You're trying to recreate what she had with that dog. That's not going to work. Maggie set down her fork. I'm not trying to replace her. Maybe not consciously, but last night you used her codes, her protocols, her methods. That worked in an emergency, but Titan doesn't need another Walsh. He needs someone who can be something different. Hutchins was quiet for a moment. Walsh and Titan had their relationship. You and Titan need to build your own. That means figuring out who you are as a handler, not trying to copy who she was. Maggie absorbed that. I don't know who I am as a handler. Then you've got 30 days to figure it out. Hutchins stood. One more thing. Walsh left something for you. It's in your locker. He walked away before Maggie could ask. After lunch, Maggie went to the locker room. Her locker had an envelope taped to it with her name in Kira's handwriting. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded once. A letter dated 10 days ago. The words were simple and devastating. Mags, if you're writing this, I didn't make it. Don't you dare feel guilty. We both knew the risks. You're probably doubting yourself right now, thinking you're too young, not ready, can't possibly do this. Stop it. I chose you for a reason. Titan doesn't need another me. He needs someone who'll try even when they're terrified. That's you. That's always been you. You're not replacing me. You're continuing what we started. Take care of my boy, and let him take care of you. You've got this. I promise. Love you, Kay. Maggie read it 3 times, then carefully folded it, put it back in the envelope, and placed it in the bottom of her locker. The afternoon classroom session was 4 hours of technical material: canine anatomy, behavioral psychology, training methodology, emergency protocols. Cole taught efficiently, making sure Maggie understood critical points. Most handlers think the job is about making the dog obey, he said. That's wrong. The job is about building a language where you and the mouse can communicate intentions. The best canine teams are the ones where you can't tell who's leading and who's following because they're doing both simultaneously. At 1700 hours, Cole dismissed her with homework: 3 technical manuals, 2 training videos, written observations from the morning. Tomorrow we try again, he said. Same time. Maggie spent that evening in her quarters working through the material, trying to absorb 3 years of knowledge in one night. Around 2200 hours, she decided to walk back to the K9 facility to check on Titan. Not because she was desperate to see if anything had changed. The facility was quiet at night. Most dogs were settled. The overnight handler nodded at her but didn't question her presence. Titan's kennel was at the end of the row. Lights dimmed, she could see him lying in the same position as this morning. Head on paws, eyes open, staring at nothing. Maggie pulled up a folding chair and sat down outside his kennel. Not inside, just present. Hey, she said softly. I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it. I'm not her. I'll never be her. Titan's ear twitched, but he didn't look at her. I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone keeps saying I need to figure out who I am as a handler, but I don't even know if I am a handler. I'm just a medic who made a promise to her best friend. She leaned back, exhaustion creeping through her muscles. Kira left me a letter. Said you need someone who will try even when they're terrified. Well, I'm terrified. I'm terrified I'm going to fail you. Fail her. Fail everyone. Titan's breathing shifted slightly, still not looking, but listening. But here's what I know. I know what it feels like to lose someone. My dad died in a helicopter crash when I was 9. Iraq deployment. I remember the officers coming to our door. Remember my mom collapsing. Remember feeling like the world had stopped making sense. Her voice dropped quieter. And I remember deciding I was never going to be that helpless again. That's why I joined the Navy. Why I became a corpsman. Because if someone was going to get hurt, I wanted to be the one there trying to save them. She looked at Titan through the kennel bars. You're hurting right now. I know I can't fix that. Can't bring Kira back. Can't make any of this make sense. But I can try to help you figure out what comes next, if you'll let me. Silence stretched between them. Then slowly Titan lifted his head. Not much, just enough to turn and look at her directly. Their eyes met, and in that moment Maggie saw something shift. Not trust yet, not acceptance, but acknowledgement. The recognition that she wasn't trying to replace his handler. She was just trying to be present with his pain. Titan stood up, walked slowly to the front of the kennel, sat down facing her less than 2 feet away with just the bars between them, and waited. Maggie stood slowly, approached the bars, extended her hand, palm up, letting him choose. Titan leaned forward, pressed his nose against her palm through the bars. The pressure was gentle but deliberate, not affection, but connection, the beginning of something. They stayed like that for several minutes. Then Titan pulled back, returned to his corner, and lay down again. But this time he kept his head up, kept watching her. Tomorrow, Maggie asked softly. Tomorrow we try again. Titan's tail thumped once against the kennel floor. It wasn't much, but it was something. Maggie left the facility feeling marginally less hopeless. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new frustrations. But tonight, for just a few minutes, she and Titan had shared something that went beyond commands and protocols. They'd shared grief, and the tentative hope that maybe they could help each other carry it. Day 3 began at 0600 with a 5-mile run. By 800, she was back at the facility ready to try again. This time when she approached Titan's kennel, he was already sitting up, watching the door, waiting. Morning, ready to give this another shot. She opened the kennel door. Titan didn't bolt, just sat there, head tilted, assessing. Titan, Maggie said using the same calm tone from last night. Come. He stood, took 2 steps forward, stopped. Not disobedience, uncertainty, testing whether she meant it. Come, Maggie repeated, and then added softer, please. Titan walked out of the kennel. Cole, watching from across the bay, nodded slowly. That's progress. Now let's see if we can build on it. The session wasn't perfect. Titan obeyed basic commands about 60% of the time. The other 40%, he simply ignored her or looked at Cole as if asking for confirmation. But it was progress, measurable, visible progress. They worked on recall commands, basic positioning, simple obstacles. Titan performed mechanically without enthusiasm, but he performed. And when Maggie called a water break and sat down on the training floor, Titan approached on his own and sat beside her. Not touching, but close, choosing proximity. You're doing better than I expected, Cole said during the mid-morning break. Most handlers at this stage would still be struggling with basic acknowledgement. You're getting compliance. It doesn't feel like enough. It's only day 3. You've got 27 days left. Stop comparing yourself to where you think you should be and focus on where you are right now. The afternoon brought tactical movement drills, practicing moving through confined spaces with Titan at her side. It required coordination, trust, and the ability to communicate through body language. Titan struggled. He kept looking back toward the kennel area, searching for something that wasn't there. When Maggie tried to redirect his attention, he pulled away. Created distance. By 1600 hours, both were clearly done. Cole called the session early. Some days are going to be like this. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's normal. Go get dinner. Get rest. Tomorrow we'll try something different. But Maggie didn't go to dinner. She returned to the facility that evening, pulled up the same chair outside Titan's kennel, just sat there. This time Titan came to the front of the kennel without prompting, sat facing her, waiting for her to talk. So she did. She told him about her day, about the frustrations and small victories, about her fears that she wasn't learning fast enough, about the pressure of knowing his life depended on her certification. And as she talked, Titan listened, ears forward, eyes focused, present in a way he hadn't been during actual training. You know what I realized today? During training, I'm trying so hard to do everything right that I forget to just be myself. I'm so worried about giving perfect commands that I'm not actually talking to you. I'm performing. And you can tell. Titan's head tilted slightly. So maybe tomorrow I try something different. Maybe I stop trying to be the perfect handler and just try to be your partner. See what happens. She stood to leave. Titan watched her go, and as she reached the door, she heard it. A soft whine. Not distressed, just acknowledgement. The sound of an animal saying he understood. Day 5 brought the first major setback. Cole had arranged for a Black Hawk helicopter to run routine maintenance on the pad adjacent to the training facility. The timing was deliberate. Part of Titan's evaluation would require him to handle high-stress environments, including helicopter insertions. Maggie knew this was coming. She'd prepared mentally. None of it mattered. The moment the Black Hawk's rotors started spinning that familiar whump, whump, whump cutting through the morning air, Titan went rigid, his entire body locked up, ears flat, eyes wide. Breathing accelerated to panting. Easy, Maggie said, moving to his side. It's okay. It's just a helicopter. You've done this hundreds of times. But Titan wasn't hearing her. He was somewhere else. Some memory where helicopters meant his handler bleeding out, meant extraction under fire, meant the last time his world made sense. He bolted, crashed through the open gate with enough force to bend the metal, tore across the open ground toward the tree line beyond the base perimeter, moving at full speed despite the healing injury on his leg. Titan, Maggie shouted. Titan, stop! He didn't stop. Within seconds, he disappeared into the trees. Cole was on his radio immediately. We've got a canine loose. Heading northwest into restricted training zone. All units be advised do not approach. Animal is traumatized and potentially dangerous. Maggie was already running. She didn't wait for authorization, didn't grab equipment, just ran after Titan with her heart hammering and Hutchins' words echoing in her head about what happened to canines who couldn't be rehabilitated. Ashford? Cole's voice called after her. Wait for search team. But she couldn't wait. Because somewhere in those woods was a traumatized animal who just lost control, and if anyone was going to find him, it needed to be someone he might actually respond to. The tree line was dense, pine and scrub oak ground covered in fallen needles and loose undergrowth. Maggie scanned for signs of passage, found them. Broken branches, disturbed earth, paw prints in soft soil. She followed the trail, pushing through vegetation, ignoring branches that caught at her uniform. Her radio crackled. Cole trying to coordinate. Hutchins demanding she return to base. Security teams mobilizing. She turned off the radio. They'd just slow her down. The trail led deeper into the restricted zone, past old training obstacles, through a dry creek bed, up a gradual slope that made her legs burn. And then 45 minutes into the search, she found him. A small clearing, afternoon sunlight filtering through the canopy, and in the center, barely visible, a collection of simple markers. Stone and wood, names carved or painted, some with flowers, some with unit patches. An unofficial memorial grove. The kind that sprung up on military bases where operators remembered their fallen friends in ways that felt more real than official ceremonies. Titan lay beside one of the markers, head on his paws, not moving, just lying there in complete stillness beside a piece of carved wood that read, Sasjade Kira Walsh, Tier Shadow KIA. Maggie's breath caught. She hadn't known this place existed, hadn't known Kira had a marker here among the other fallen warriors. She approached slowly. Titan's ears flicked toward her, but he didn't raise his head. She sat down beside him, her back against a tree, and for the longest time she didn't say anything. Just sat there in the quiet grove with a grieving animal and the ghost of her best friend hovering in the space between them. Finally, after maybe 20 minutes, Maggie spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I miss her too. Titan's ear twitched. Every single day I wake up, and for about 3 seconds I forget. I think about texting her some stupid joke or asking if she wants coffee, and then I remember. And it feels like drowning all over again. The words came easier now, tumbling out. All the things she hadn't said to anyone because medics were supposed to be strong, supposed to handle death because they saw it all the time, supposed to compartmentalize and move on. Everyone keeps saying I need to step up, be what you need, honor her memory. And I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. But I'm not Kira. I'll never be Kira. She was fearless and confident and always knew exactly what to do. Her voice broke. And I doubt myself every single second. I'm terrified I'm going to fail you. Fail her. Fail everyone. Tears were running down her face now. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be enough. She buried her face in her hands, letting the grief come. The grief she'd been holding back for days while she tried to be professional, tried to be strong, tried to be the person everyone needed her to be. And then she felt it. Warm pressure against her leg. Titan had moved, placed his paw on her knee, the same gesture he'd done in the clinic that first night. Not affection, not comfort, just presence, just acknowledgement that she was hurting, and he understood. Maggie looked up through blurred vision. Titan was watching her, not with Kira's eyes, not with the expectation that she'd be anything other than who she was. Just watching, present, sharing the grief because grief was something he understood all too well. You don't need me to be Kira, do you? Maggie whispered. Titan's tail thumped once against the ground. And I don't need you to forget her. Another thump. Maybe we just help each other remember and figure out what comes next, together. Titan shifted closer, pressed his body against her side. And they sat like that in the memorial grove for a long time. Two broken souls who'd lost the same person finding in each other not replacement, but recognition. Eventually, Maggie's radio crackled back to life, Cole's voice tense. Ashford report. We've got search teams mobilizing. What's your location? She pulled out the radio. Northwest restricted zone. Memorial Grove. Titan's with me. We're both okay. Do you need assistance? Maggie looked at Titan, who was calm now. Present? No, Master Chief. We're good. We'll walk back. Copy that. See you at base. They made the walk back slowly. No commands, no leash, just walking side by side through the woods. Titan limped slightly on his injured leg, but he stayed close. Chose to stay close. When they emerged from the tree line, Cole was waiting near the training facility. Hutchins stood beside him. Both men looked concerned, tense, ready for whatever condition the K-9 might be in. But Titan walked calmly at Maggie's side. Head up, alert, present. Cole studied them both. What happened out there? Maggie met his eyes. We talked, and I think we finally understood each other. That night, for the first time, Titan allowed Maggie to enter his kennel. She sat on the floor and he lay down beside her, close enough that she could feel his breathing. Close enough that when she placed her hand on his shoulder, he leaned into the contact instead of pulling away. Tomorrow we try again, she said softly. The helicopter, the training, all of it, but this time we do it together. Not me giving commands and you following. Just partners figuring it out. Titan's response was to shift closer, press his head against her leg, and release a long sigh that sounded almost like relief. In the observation window, Cole watched the scene and pulled out his phone. Sent a text to Bradford. Recommend continuation. Progress significant. They're bonding. Bradford's response came 30 seconds later. Good. 25 days remaining. They're going to need every one of them. Day 28 arrived with the weight of inevitability. Maggie stood outside the K-9 facility in pre-dawn darkness, watching first light creep over the eastern mountains. Her body bore evidence of accelerated training, new muscle definition, calluses on her palms, dark circles that had become permanent fixtures. But there was something else now, too. A steadiness in her stance, confidence that came from small victories and survived failures, from knowing exactly what she and Titan could do together. The facility door opened. Titan emerged with Cole moving with the easy grace of a fully healed animal. The shrapnel wound had closed to a thin scar. His coat gleamed. His eyes were clear and focused. He saw Maggie and moved immediately to her side. No command given, no leash required, just the natural gravitation of partners. Coffee? Cole held out a thermos cup. Please. Maggie wrapped her hands around the warmth. Cole poured his own cup. Most people can't sleep the night before certification. You look like you got 2 hours. About that. Normal, but you need to shut that off now. Trust your preparation. Trust what you and Titan have built. He paused. The board convenes at 0800. Captain Sloan arrived from the West Coast yesterday evening. He'll be observing your final training session this morning. Maggie's stomach tightened. Captain Vincent Sloan, the man who'd never passed a female handler in 8 years. What should I expect from him? Cole's expression was neutral. Sloan's old school, believes K-9 handling requires physical dominance and absolute authority. He thinks partnership models are soft. He'll be looking for any sign of insufficient control. So he's already decided I'll fail. He's decided to evaluate critically. There's a difference, but I won't lie. If Sloan votes no, the other board members will need overwhelming evidence to override him. His reputation carries significant weight. Titan leaned against Maggie's legs, solid and warm. She looked down at him, at the intelligence in those brown eyes. Then we make sure he sees something he can't deny. The morning training session began at 0800 sharp. Captain Sloan stood in the observation area like a statue carved from granite and skepticism. 51 years old, tall and rigid steel gray hair, cut to regulation perfection. His uniform bore pressed creases that spoke of military discipline, elevated to religious devotion. Maggie tried to ignore his presence, focused on the training sequence Cole had designed. Search and rescue scenarios, tactical movement drills, obstacle courses testing coordination and mutual trust. Titan performed beautifully. Every command executed with precision, every scenario completed within target parameters. They moved through exercises with synchronization that looked effortless, but represented weeks of grinding repetition. But Maggie could feel Sloan's eyes on her, watching, judging, waiting for the inevitable failure he expected. By 1100 hours, they'd completed every planned exercise. Cole called a lunch break. Tomorrow's the real one, Maggie said quietly to Titan as they sat in a corner. Everything comes down to tomorrow morning. Titan leaned against her solid and reassuring. Through the window, she could see the three senior officers in discussion. Sloane's dismissive hand gestures. Cole's patient explanations. Hutchins had joined them. A debate about her future and Titan's life happening 30 feet away. She turned away. But you know what, Kira didn't raise quitters, and she chose us for a reason. So tomorrow we walk in there and we show them exactly what we are. Partners. And we let that speak for itself. The afternoon session was different. Cole had arranged a complex scenario combining multiple elements. Building clearance with simulated explosives. Hostile role players. A casualty requiring medical evacuation. And Captain Sloan wasn't just observing anymore. He was scoring, making notes on a tablet, every movement documented. Maggie pushed the awareness aside, focused on the work, on Titan, on the rhythm they'd developed. They breached the mock structure. Titan swept for explosives while Maggie covered. He alerted on a simulated IED with the specific bark pattern that meant high-confidence detection. Maggie called the halt, marked the location, calculated the bypass route. They continued clearance room by room, Titan checking corners, scanning for threats with professional efficiency. When they encountered the first hostile role player, Titan engaged on command and disengaged the instant Maggie gave the signal. The casualty was in the final room, a training mannequin rigged with fake blood. Maggie moved to assess while Titan held security on the entrance. She called out her medical findings, applied simulated treatment, prepared for evacuation protocol. That's when the scenario changed. A second hostile appeared from behind concealment. Not in the briefing, a deliberate complication. Titan detected the movement before Maggie did. His body tensed. But he didn't abandon his security position. Instead, he barked 3 times sharp and clear, the alert pattern for threat approaching from behind. Maggie spun, assessed the new hostile, made her decision. Titan engaged rear. He moved instantly, took down the role player with controlled aggression, held position while Maggie secured the threat, then returned to his guard post without additional command. The scenario ended. Cole's voice over the loudspeaker. Time. Secure positions. Through the observation window, she could see the officers in heated discussion. Sloan shaking his head, Cole looking frustrated. 5 minutes of debate. Then Cole emerged, expression professionally neutral. Strong work today. That final complication was advanced level and you handled it well. But Cole glanced back. Captain Sloan has concerns. He believes Titan showed excessive aggression during the engagement sequence, that your control was insufficient to prevent potential friendly fire in real combat. That's absurd. Titan performed exactly to our protocol. I know, Hutchins and I both agree, but Sloan's interpretation is that a handler without sufficient physical presence cannot maintain adequate control. He's concerned that in actual combat, Titan might fail to disengage when commanded if the situation is chaotic enough. Cold fury built in Maggie's chest. So no matter how well we perform, he'll manufacture a reason to fail us. I didn't say that. I said he has concerns. Tomorrow's certification addresses those concerns directly. If you and Titan can demonstrate perfect control in the handler down scenario, Sloan's objections become academic. And if we can't, Cole met her eyes steadily, then his concerns become the board's decision. Maggie spent that evening at the Memorial Grove. She hadn't returned since the day Titan had bolted. But tonight she needed to be close to her friend before everything came down to one final test. Titan walked beside her through the darkening woods, no leash required. The grove was peaceful in the fading light. Someone had placed fresh flowers on Kira's marker. Yellow roses, Kira's favorite. She sat with her back against a tree. Titan lay beside her head, resting on her thigh. Tomorrow's the day, Kira, Maggie said quietly. Everything gets decided. And there's this officer, Captain Sloan, who's already convinced that women can't do this job. Wind moved through the branches above. I keep thinking about what you'd do. You were always so confident. You'd probably just walk in and blow them away with pure competence. Titan shifted position, pressing closer. But I'm not you. I'll never be you. And I don't know if being me is enough. Her voice cracked. I'm terrified I'm going to let you down. She sat in the quiet for long minutes, letting the fear wash through her, acknowledging it. Finally, she spoke again, voice steadier. But here's what I do know. Titan and I, we've built something real these past 4 weeks. We're not you and him. We're us, our own team. And that has to count for something. She stood slowly, Titan rising with her, reached out and touched the marker gently. Thank you for believing in us, both of us, for seeing something in me I couldn't see in myself. The walk back was quiet and peaceful, and when they reached the facility, Maggie made a decision. She signed out a sleeping bag and spent the night in Titan's kennel, not hovering anxiously, just being present together. They slept curled up side by side like packmates, partners, friends, ready for whatever morning would bring. Certification day began at 0800 hours in the main evaluation facility. The board sat at a long table, Commander Bradford in the center, Master Chief Cole to his right, Senior Chief Hutchins to his left. Dr. Patricia Moreland sat as medical observer. And at the far end, Captain Vincent Sloan, his expression already conveying skepticism. Maggie stood at attention in her dress uniform. Titan sat at heel position beside her, alert but calm. Bradford opened formally. Petty Officer Second Class Magdalene Ashford, you are here for Provisional K-9 Handler Certification with Tier 1 Combat Asset. Titan Serial Designation Tango Sierra 4471. This board will evaluate your competency across 8 required areas. Do you understand the evaluation process? Yes, sir. The evaluation consists of practical demonstrations followed by board questions. You will be scored on a pass-fail basis in each area. Passing requires unanimous board approval. Do you have any questions before we begin? No, sir. Then let's proceed. First evaluation area, basic obedience and control. They moved through the scenarios efficiently. Basic commands executed flawlessly. Tactical movements showing clear communication. Scent detection where Titan located 4 hidden training aids in under 6 minutes with 0 false alerts. Sloan made notes, but his expression never changed. The morning progressed through increasingly complex scenarios. Threat assessment where Titan had to differentiate between hostile and friendly role players. Medical emergency response where Maggie had to treat a simulated casualty while Titan provided security. By 1100 hours, they'd completed 6 of the 8 evaluation areas. Maggie could feel exhaustion creeping in, but pushed through on discipline. Titan remained focused and professional. Bradford called a 30-minute break. The board retired to deliberate. Cole appeared in the doorway. You're doing excellent work. 6 for 6 so far. Hutchins and I have you passing with high marks. And Sloan? Cole's jaw tightened. He's marked you passing, but with reservations noted. He's waiting for the final 2 scenarios. He thinks that's where I'll fail. He thinks that's where your insufficient physical authority will result in loss of control. That Titan will either under-respond and fail to protect you, or over-respond and become too aggressive to manage. The handler down scenario was legendary in K-9 certification. The handler simulated a combat injury and became completely non-responsive. The K-9 had to protect the handler call for help using specific alert patterns, prevent both hostile and friendly approach, until proper identification could be verified and allow only authorized medical personnel to reach the handler once identification was confirmed. It tested everything. Training bond judgment control. It was designed to break teams that weren't truly ready. What does he expect to happen? He expects Titan will over-respond due to his previous trauma, that he'll treat all approaches as hostile, and you won't be able to control him remotely once you're incapacitated. Maggie looked down at Titan. He's wrong. Titan knows the difference between protection and aggression. We've worked this scenario a dozen times. I know you have, but you need to prove it to Sloan. Perfectly. No ambiguity. The afternoon session began with Evaluation Area 7, off-leash reliability in a complex environment. Titan had to navigate through a simulation of civilian foot traffic vehicle movement and competing stimuli while maintaining focus on Maggie's commands. He performed flawlessly, stayed in position through chaos, ignored food distractions, maintained focus despite other canines barking aggressively from nearby kennels. Sloan marked his tablet without visible reaction. Then came the final evaluation. Handler down. The scenario setup was elaborate, a mock combat environment with multiple role players. Maggie would move through the tactical scenario, engage simulated targets, with Titan support, then execute the handler down protocol. Everything that happened after that moment would determine whether they passed or failed. Bradford gave the briefing. This scenario will run until either successful evacuation is achieved or the board calls a safety halt. Petty Officer Ashford, any questions? No, sir. Then you may begin when ready. Maggie and Titan moved to the starting position. She took a moment to center herself, felt Titan's presence beside her solid and steady. She gave the signal. They entered the scenario. The first phase proceeded smoothly. Movement through the mock combat zone engaging hostile role players as Titan performing security sweeps. Then the simulation escalated. A loud explosion from concealed speakers. Smoke grenades creating visual confusion. Role players shouting contradictory orders. Maggie moved toward the objective marker Titan at her side, matching her pace. A hostile role player emerged. Titan engaged on command, executed a controlled takedown released immediately on signal. They reached the objective point. Maggie triggered the handler down protocol, went down hard on her side, became completely non-responsive. Eyes closed. No movement, no commands. Everything now depended entirely on Titan. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Titan stood over her, fallen form processing. Then his training activated. He moved immediately to defensive position over her body, barked 3 times, then twice, then once. The emergency alert pattern. Handler down, medical assistance required. The first role player approached wearing hostile identification markers. Titan gave a single warning bark. The role player continued. Titan lunged forward at exactly 3 feet, teeth bared aggressive display, stopping the approach cold without making physical contact. The hostile backed away. Appropriate response. A second role player approached from a different angle, also marked hostile. Titan shifted his defensive position, smoothly maintaining coverage of Maggie while tracking the new threat. Same warning bark, same controlled aggression, same successful deterrence. 2 hostile threats neutralized without actual engagement. Perfect discipline. Then friendly forces appeared. 3 role players in U.S. military uniforms carrying proper friendly identification. They approached slowly, calling out friendly status codes. Titan held his defensive position but didn't show aggression toward them. His body language shifted from threatening to alert protective. He allowed them to approach within 10 feet, then blocked further movement with his body. The assessment phase. Determining friend versus foe. One of the friendly role players attempted to push past Titan's position. Titan blocked with his body. Still no aggression, just immovable resistance. The role player increased pressure. Titan growled low, a clear warning. The role player backed off immediately. Appropriate escalation. Perfect judgment. Then the medical role player appeared, clearly marked with Red Cross insignia, carrying medical equipment, approaching with hands visible and non-threatening body language, calling out proper medical identification codes. This was the critical moment. Would Titan allow approach, or would his trauma and protective instincts override his training? Titan watched the medic approach with intense focus. Body tense, calculating. The medic stopped at 6 feet, repeated medical identification codes. Titan's ears rotated forward, processing, comparing the current stimulus to his training. Then slowly, deliberately, he shifted position, moved from over Maggie's body to beside her. Maintained alert posture, eyes locked on the medic, but allowed the approach. The medic knelt beside Maggie, began simulated medical assessment. Titan watched every single movement with laser focus but didn't interfere. When the medic reached to check Maggie's pulse, Titan's eyes tracked the hand, but he showed no aggression. Perfect discrimination. Protection without excessive force. Trust in proper identification protocols. The medic called for evacuation. 2 additional role players approached with a stretcher. Titan tracked them closely but allowed approach when they maintained non-threatening behavior. They loaded Maggie onto the stretcher, began moving toward the evacuation point. Titan followed alongside in security positions, scanning continuously for threats, but not interfering. Bradford's voice came over the loudspeaker. Scenario complete. Handler may resume normal function. Maggie opened her eyes, sat up on the stretcher, looked immediately at Titan, who transitioned instantly from security mode to concerned partner. He moved close, pressed his nose against her hand. Good boy, she said softly. You did so good. I'm so proud of you. The board deliberated for 45 minutes that felt like hours. Finally, Cole appeared in the doorway. His expression was carefully controlled, but something in his eyes suggested news. Board's ready? Let's go. Maggie stood Titan immediately at her side. They walked back into the evaluation facility together. Bradford spoke first. Petty Officer Ashford, this board has completed evaluation of your handler certification with Combat K9 Titan. We will now deliver individual assessments. Master Chief Cole, passed with high marks in all 8 evaluation areas. This team demonstrates exceptional competency, strong tactical communication, and operational readiness that exceeds standard certification requirements. I recommend full certification without restrictions. Senior Chief Hutchins, pass across all areas, strong performance throughout. The handler down evaluation was textbook perfect execution. Clear evidence of solid training and genuine partnership. Recommend full certification. Dr. Moreland, pass. Titan shows no residual trauma markers that would prevent operational deployment. The bond between handler and K9 is strong, appropriate, and professionally maintained. Recommend certification with confidence. Bradford nodded, then turned to the far end of the table. Captain Sloan. The room went silent. Every eye turned to the man who held the power to end everything they'd built. Sloan stood slowly. His expression was thoughtful, almost troubled. He looked at Maggie for a long moment, then at Titan. When I arrived at Coronado 2 days ago, Sloan began, his voice measured, I had significant reservations about this certification attempt. I did not believe that a 25-year-old female corpsman with minimal handling experience could possibly achieve Tier 1 K9 operational qualification in 30 days. I believe this evaluation was essentially a formality before the inevitable failure I expected to document. Maggie felt her heart sinking. I was wrong. Her head snapped up. Sloan continued, and now his voice carried the weight of someone admitting a difficult truth. What I witnessed over the past 2 days was not a handler attempting to dominate an animal through physical authority or force of will. What I witnessed was a partnership built on mutual trust, clear communication, and genuine professional respect. He looked directly at Maggie. The handler down scenario is specifically designed to test the absolute limits of canine control. It requires the animal to make complex judgment calls without handler input, to discriminate between multiple threat levels, to balance protection with appropriate restraint. Most teams with years of experience struggle significantly with this evaluation. He paused. Your team executed it perfectly, not because you controlled Titan through dominance, but because you taught him to think, to assess, to be an intelligent partner rather than simply a tool that follows orders. Sloan picked up his evaluation sheet. I came to Coronado believing that women lack the temperament and physical presence for this work. You've proven that belief was based on outdated assumptions and personal bias rather than objective assessment. Your performance over these 2 days was exceptional, and it has forced me to reconsider criteria I've held throughout my entire career. He looked at Bradford. My evaluation is pass, full certification recommended without restrictions, with the additional notation that this team demonstrates operational readiness for immediate deployment at the highest level. The relief hit Maggie like a physical wave. Her knees threatened to buckle. Titan pressed against her leg, immediately offering support. Bradford stood. Then, by unanimous decision of this board, Petty Officer 2nd Class Magdalene Ashford is hereby certified as primary handler for Combat K9 Titan with full operational authority and Tier 1 asset clearance. Congratulations, Petty Officer. You have earned this achievement through exceptional dedication and performance. The formality dissolved. Cole was grinning openly. Hutchins nodded with unmistakable respect. Dr. Moreland applauded quietly. Even Sloan offered a slight but genuine smile. Maggie snapped to attention despite her shaking legs. Thank you, sir. All of you, I won't let you down. We won't let you down. You already haven't, Bradford said. Now get 72 hours of rest. You and Titan deploy on a real operation in 2 weeks. Mission briefing will be provided at that time. 2 weeks later, at 0400 hours on a moonless morning, Maggie and Titan sat in the back of a Black Hawk helicopter heading toward the Mexican border. The mission was real. The stakes were real. Everything they'd trained for was about to be tested. The team was small and experienced. Senior Chief Hutchins as team leader. 4 SEAL operators. and Maggie with Titan, the newest additions. The mission briefing had been thorough. High-value target compound in Sonora Desert, 50 kilometers south of the border. Suspected cartel intelligence location. Hard drives containing trafficking route information. Small security force estimated at 6 to 8 hostile. Insertion via helicopter to a drop point 2 kilometers out. Approach on foot. Breach and secure the intelligence. Exfiltration via the same route. Standard direct action operation. Except it was Maggie's first real mission as a certified handler, and Titan's first mission since Kira had died. Hutchins leaned close over the helicopter noise. "You ready for this, Ashford?" Maggie looked at Titan, who sat calmly beside her despite the helicopter noise that had once triggered his worst trauma. His eyes were clear and focused. "Yes, Senior Chief. We're ready." "Good. Your job is straightforward. Titan sweeps for explosives on approach and entry. Once in time, he locates the hard edge fire. After we secure the intel, he provides rear security during exfil. Questions? No, Senior Chief. Then let's do this clean." The helicopter descended toward the drop point, flaring hard as it came to hover 3 feet off the desert floor. The team fast roped out in practiced sequence. Maggie and Titan went last, hitting the sand and immediately moving to cover as the Black Hawk lifted away into darkness. The night was ink black under the new moon. They moved through the desert in tactical formation, night vision, turning the world into shades of green. Titan ranged ahead with Maggie using hand signals she'd refined through weeks of practice. They covered the 2 kilometers in 30 minutes. As they approached the target compound, Hutchins called a halt. The compound sat in a shallow valley, 2-story concrete structure with reinforced doors and barred windows. Thermal imaging showed 6 heat signatures inside. "Ashford, bring Titan up. We need to check the approach for surprises." Maggie moved forward with Titan into the lead position. Use the hand signal for explosive sweep. Titan immediately shifted into work mode, nose to the ground, moving in the methodical pattern they'd practiced countless times. 20 meters from the compound entrance, Titan stopped, sat down. The alert position for explosive detection. Maggie moved up, carefully examined the area with her night vision. Found it. A pressure plate buried under a thin layer of sand. Wires leading back toward the compound. Not crude cartel work. This was professional. "Contact. Pressure IED at entry point." She marked the location with an infrared chem light. Hutchins moved up to assess. "That's military-grade work. This isn't standard cartel security." Petty Officer Jake Brennan, the team's explosive specialist, examined the device. "This is sophisticated. Pressure trigger with anti-tamper failsafe. I can disarm it, but it'll take 15 minutes minimum. We don't have that time. Enemy reinforcements are 20 minutes out, according to intel." Maggie studied the approach. The IED blocked the main entry. The side approaches were exposed to windows, but Titan's nose was better than any equipment they carried. "Titan can map a safe path around it." Hutchins looked at her sharply. "Explain." "He can scent track the wire paths from the device, map out where the trigger zones are, find us a safe corridor through." Brennan was skeptical. "That's not standard protocol." "No," Maggie agreed, "but it works. We practiced it during training using similar device configurations." Hutchins considered for maybe 5 seconds. "Your call, Ashford. You're confident in this." Maggie looked at Titan, remembered weeks of building trust, remembered the memorial grove and shared grief, remembered Kira's voice saying, "Trust your training, trust your partner." "Yes, Senior Chief, I'm confident." "Then do it." Maggie gave Titan the hand signal for explosive mapping. Titan moved forward carefully, nose working, following invisible scent trails that marked where wires ran beneath the sand. He moved in a careful pattern, pausing to mark safe zones with his paw. Left, forward, right 3 steps, forward 2 steps, left again, marking out a path that wove between trigger zones. The team followed his marks in single file, each operator placing their feet exactly where Titan had indicated safety. Maggie went last, her heart hammering, trusting her partner's nose over every tactical instinct that said this was insane. They made it through. All 6 of them, not one triggering the device. Hutchins looked at Maggie with new respect. "Outstanding work, both of you." They stacked at the entrance. Breaching charge placed. Hutchins did the countdown with hand signals. The charge blew. They flowed through the opening. The interior was exactly as briefed. Ground floor largely empty, stairs leading up. The team moved in practiced rhythm, clearing corners. Titan alerted twice more. Pressure sensors on the stairs not explosive but connected to alarms. The team disabled them and continued up. Second floor was where it began. 4 hostiles all armed. The breach was loud and fast, flashbangs creating temporary confusion. The operators moving with brutal efficiency. 2 hostiles down in the first 3 seconds non-lethal impact rounds. A third tried to reach for a weapon and was neutralized. The 4th hostile dropped to the floor with hands visible. 90 seconds from breach to secure. Textbook execution. Ashford, find that intel. Maggie moved through the secured space with Titan. The second floor was divided into 3 rooms. 2 were living quarters. The third was set up as a makeshift office. She gave Titan the scent sample from the specific type of hard drive they were seeking. Watched him work the room methodically. He alerted at the filing cabinet. Maggie checked it. Nothing visible. But Titan insisted pawing at a specific spot. She examined more carefully, found the false bottom, lifted it. 3 hard drives secured in foam packaging. Exactly what they came for. Intel located and secured. Copy, everyone to exfil positions. That's when the situation changed. The hostile they'd taken alive started speaking rapidly in Spanish. One of the operators translated. He says there's a second team. Local security, already on approach, 2 minutes out. Hutchins processed instantly. We don't have time to exfil our planned route. Alternate exits. Maggie was closest to the windows. Looked out. Saw vehicle lights approaching fast from the north. 2 trucks. North approach is blocked. 2 vehicles incoming. South exit. She moved to check the opposite window. Titan suddenly went rigid beside her. His body language shifted to high alert. He moved to the window, stared out at the darkness, then looked back at Maggie with specific intensity. She'd learned to read him over 4 weeks. That look meant something specific. Threat assessment, danger approaching. Hutchins Titan's alerting on the south approach too. You sure thermals are not showing anything? I'm sure. He's showing flanking pattern alert. Same as in training when we practiced ambush scenarios. Hutchins trusted her instantly. Then they're setting up a pincer. Smart. Brennan, what about the east wall? The explosive specialist checked. Reinforced. We could breach it, but it'll take time and make noise. They were trapped. Hostiles approaching from 2 sides. No clean exit. This was where operations went from textbook to catastrophic. Maggie studied the situation. Thought about everything Cole had taught her. Sometimes the best tactics weren't in the manual. There's a third option. Hutchins looked at her. I'm listening. The roof. These desert compounds usually have roof access for cooling and water storage. If we can get topside, we can move to the south side away from both approach vectors and rope down out of sight. That's assuming there's roof access. Titan can find it. If there's an access point, there'll be different airflow patterns. He can scent track them. It was insane, trusting a dog's nose to find an exit that might not exist while hostiles closed in from 2 directions. But Hutchins had already seen Titan map the safe path through the IED field. Do it, fast. Maggie gave Titan the search signal. He moved through the second floor rapidly, nose working, stopped at what looked like a solid ceiling panel. Alerted. Brennan checked it. It's a hatch, secured from this side. He popped the latches. A ladder extended down. The team moved up through the hatch onto the flat roof. The hostile vehicles were visible now, headlights cutting through the darkness. Maybe 90 seconds until they arrived. They moved to the south side of the roof. Brennan secured ropes. They went down one at a time fast, but controlled. Maggie and Titan went last. They hit the ground and moved immediately into the desert darkness. Behind them, they could hear shouting as the hostile force realized the compound was empty. The team moved fast through the darkness, 2 kilometers to the extraction point, 20 minutes of hard movement through rough terrain. They made it with 5 minutes to spare. The Black Hawk came in low and fast. They loaded up and lifted away just as vehicle lights appeared on the horizon behind them. Inside the helicopter, Hutchins moved down the bench to where Maggie sat with Titan. Had to shout over the rotor noise. That was outstanding work back there, Ashford. The IED mapping, reading Titan's alert on the south approach, finding that roof access. You made calls that saved this mission and probably saved lives. Just doing my job, Senior Chief. No. Hutchins shook his head. You were doing more than your job. You were being the partner that dog needed, and you were proving that Walsh was right about you all along. He extended his hand. Maggie shook it. The first genuine acknowledgement from a senior enlisted who'd started out doubting everything about her. The helicopter carried them north toward Coronado as the sun began to rise over the desert. Maggie sat with Titan pressed against her leg, both of them exhausted, both of them knowing they'd passed the only test that truly mattered. The debrief happened at 1400 hours after they'd all gotten some sleep. Bradford presided with Cole and Hutchins present. Bradford reviewed the after-action report. Intelligence secured with 0 friendly casualties. Hostile force avoided through tactical adaptation. By all metrics, this was a successful operation. He looked at Maggie. The report specifically commends Petty Officer Ashford and K-9 Titan for exceptional performance under combat conditions. The explosive mapping procedure and ambush detection are being written up as new tactical capabilities for K-9 teams. Thank you, sir. How's Titan handling the aftermath? He's good, sir. Tired, but no signs of stress or trauma responses. Dr. Moreland did a post-mission evaluation and cleared him for continued operations. Bradford nodded. Good, because we've got 3 more operations in the pipeline that could use your capabilities. But first, you and Titan are getting 72 hours of stand-down time. That's not optional. After the debrief, Maggie returned one final time to the Memorial Grove. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Titan walked beside her, calm and content. She sat beside Kira's marker. This time she'd brought something with her. The handler's patch Kira had worn on every mission. We did it, Kira, Maggie said quietly, running her fingers over the worn fabric. First mission, complete. Everything went exactly like you said it would. I trusted my training. I trusted Titan. And we figured it out together. She placed the patch at the base of the marker. I know I'm not you. I know I'll never handle him the way you did. But I think we figured out our own way. And I think you'd be proud of that. Proud of us. Titan lay beside her head, resting on her knee, peaceful in this place that honored his first handler. Thank you for trusting me with him, for believing in us even when we didn't believe in ourselves, for giving us both the chance to become the team we were meant to be. The wind moved through the trees, and for a moment Maggie could almost hear Kira's voice. You've got this, Mags. You've always had this. 8 months later, on a gray morning with rain threatening, Chegi stood in front of a training class of junior corpsmen learning about K-9 support operations. Cole had asked her to share her experience. Titan lay at her feet, calm and professional, wearing his tactical vest with 14 mission patches sewn on. 14 successful operations. 0 casualties. The most important thing to understand about working with military K-9s, Maggie told the class, is that they're not tools. They're not equipment. They're partners, teammates. And that partnership has to be earned every single day. A young corpsman raised his hand. How do you earn that trust, Petty Officer? Oh. Maggie looked down at Titan, who gazed back with those steady brown eyes. You start by being honest about what you don't know. You admit your fears. You show up every day even when you don't feel ready. You make mistakes and you learn from them. You trust them to do their job while you do yours. And somewhere in all of that, if you're lucky, you stop being 2 individuals and become 1 team. Another hand. Is it true you got certified in 30 days? That's impossible. It felt impossible, Maggie admitted. Every single day felt impossible. But here's what I learned. Impossible just means nobody's figured out how to do it yet. It doesn't mean it can't be done. After the class ended, Cole approached. Good work, Petty Officer First Class Ashford. The promotion had come through 6 weeks ago. Recognition for exceptional performance and leadership. Thank you, Master Chief. Still feels strange being called that. You earned it. Cole looked at Titan. How's he doing? He's good. We're good. We've found our rhythm. Walsh would be proud of both of you. I hope so, Master Chief. I really hope so. That evening, after training and classes and all the responsibilities that came with her new rank, Maggie stood outside the K-9 facility watching the sunset over the Pacific. Titan sat beside her. Her radio crackled. Bradford's voice. Ashford got a tasking for you and Titan. High priority operation. Are you available? She looked at Titan. He looked back. Ready. Always ready. Yes, sir. We're available. Good. Mission brief at 0600 tomorrow. This one's going to be challenging. Understood, sir. We'll be ready. She turned off the radio, scratched Titan behind the ears. You heard the man. Another mission. You ready for this? Titan's tail thumped against the ground once. Not excited, not anxious, just certain. Yeah, Maggie said softly. Me too. They walked together toward the facility as darkness fell. Partners, friends, a team built not from perfection, but from courage and trust, and the willingness to try even when success seemed impossible. Kira had been right all along. Maggie was ready, not because she'd become someone else, but because she'd learned to be the best version of herself. And that in the end was all anyone could ask. The light from the facility spilled out into the darkness as they entered. Behind them, the memorial grove stood silent in the gathering night, a place where the past was honored but didn't define the future, where a fallen operator's faith in two people she loved had transformed into something neither of them expected, but both needed: a partnership, a team, a legacy, and it was only just beginning.